point a camera at this lovely man who took the time to come here. And you probably read his bio, but I would love him to tell us a little bit about himself and also what he does and why and how it's helpful and what we should, as computer human interface professionals, think about when we're thinking how we could help them. It's a volunteer organization part, but no, it's not volunteer. It's a 501(c), I think, right? Isn't it? Yeah. It's and there's a beautiful building that they occupy. Hopefully, we'll have a field trip to it to see how they save all the web pages of the world since 1996. So, Mark, please take it away.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I'm really glad to be here tonight. And I'm always happy for the opportunity to share information, maybe inspiration about what we do at the Internet Archive. And I give this a tour most Fridays. Takes about an hour, where I walk through our headquarters building at 300 Funston and show people physically, hands-on, what we do, and then talk about a lot of the things that I'm going to talk about tonight. So if anyone wants to get more of this and or tell other people how to learn more about the Internet Archive, every single Friday except for Thanksgiving and Christmas weeks at 1 o'clock, just show up and myself or Brewster Kale, our founder, will give a tour.
Just on that topic, I would love for us to start a little emails around and see if we can do it at the same time, so we can kind of have a little sense of community when we go.
Yeah. And you never know. It's there's often dozens of people that go on the tour. We're in some of the tour guides now, like what to do in San Francisco. But folks come in from all over the world. Never know who's going to show up. A lot of classrooms and other folks. It's always very inspiring. So, and I was inspired. I came in here and met Carrie face to face, and turns out we had an interaction many years ago around computer-human interfaces. And so I'll address that a little bit, but it was a real highlight and a treat meeting you. So I appreciate that. So let's see. I think I'll just spend a few minutes telling you about my story, and for a couple of reasons. One, because I keep dipping back into things that I've done and kind of trying to draw lessons or opportunities to revisit some of that work. And because also maybe some of you have some connections to some of these things that I've been involved in, and it might be an opportunity for us to talk about that or collaborate at some point. So super briefly, I'm 65 years old, just passed that milestone recently, and so I get the discount now at my local grocery store. Right out of high school, I joined the U.S. Air Force. I wanted to go to MIT, but they didn't want me, and I had no backup plan. So went in the Air Force and started out as a linguist here in California, and went to school in Monterey at the Language Institute. But within the first half year, switched over to computers, and ended up getting stationed at the Pentagon. I spent 3 years there running mainframe computers for lots of different divisions of the Department of Defense, including what was effectively 2 different computers that, if you put them together, it's the computer in the movie War Games. So the Worldwide Military Command and Control System on one end of the room, and at the other end of the football-sized room was an IBM 370 with 3302 processor that modeled thermonuclear war. And as a very young 20-year-old person with a couple of stripes on my arm, pressing buttons, I operated this computer that modeled thermonuclear war. And often I was the only one in my part of the room for like hours and hours. And my job really had nothing to do with what the computers were doing, but because of the nature of what I had to do, which is run these computers, I had to pay attention. So I paid a lot of attention to what was going on there. And that led me to, ended up spending months and months at the National Archives down on the Mall, doing my own personal study to try to figure out how we got ourselves into this nuclear war problem, and by consulting the papers from the 40s and the 50s. Anyway, I'll speed things up a bit. I co-founded something called the Nuclear Weapons Freeze Campaign, the call to halt the arms race for Washington, D.C., while I was still in uniform. Became very active in the anti-nuclear war movement when I was still in uniform. When I left with an honorable discharge and having had a top secret security clearance, I moved to Berkeley, California, planning to get a degree in peace studies. Instead, within about a year or so, I created a computer network for peace activists in '84 called PeaceNet. It grew an Institute for Global Communications, and now it's an NGO, pretty vibrant all over the world, now 40 years later, called Association for Progressive Communications. So I did that for like 8 years, and then I went off to find my fortune. Still working on that a little bit. But I started an internet consulting business in 1990. So this is pre-web. Did a bunch of stuff for the course of 5 years. I went to Steve Case and said, this is a thing called the internet. It's going to be a big deal. So he let me build the Internet Center on my credit cards. Not a great business person. This was a combination of Waze, which was the invention of Brewster Kahle, the founder of the Internet Archive, and Gopher, and a bunch of other things that my team threw together and then help lots and lots of folks connect with the internet as we know it for the first time.
Just an interlude.
Yeah.
These tools you're talking about are tools for looking for information and storing information.
Yep.
Before there was a
right. Wide area information service is an implementation of Z39.50, a library standard, and it is by some accounts the first publishing and discovery mechanism for the internet in the pre-Gopher, pre-web time period, which only lasted for a couple of years. I also helped start it, and I ran the US side of the first US-Soviet email system, and I was very involved in US-Soviet citizen diplomacy during that time as well, and did a few other things. I left that to work at the Well, the Whole Earth Electronic Link, and I ran technology there and also business development. And I started the project to build the first web interface for an online community. This is a topic response message board system. Think of this as like Usenet, but kind of in a more closed fashion. And so we built this web interface for it, which is still up and running. It's called Well Engaged. So you can actually still see this web interface. This was when Netscape was first getting started. And I remember driving on Netscape and being introduced to these frames for the first time and how that was going to revolutionize our interface. Anyway, did that for a while. Then I joined a startup in New York City called iVillage, the Women's Network. We went public during the heyday before the crash, a multi-billion-dollar .com. And then within a few years, it was down to less than $20 million. But we stuck with it. I stuck with it for a total of 18 years in total. The last half of that had been acquired by NBC. So I worked on the entertainment side of NBC for a number of years. And then gratefully, for the last few years, before I joined the Internet Archive, I was on the news side. And I worked for Vivian Schiller, who is the Chief Digital Officer of NBC News Digital, and did a bunch of digital innovation work there, including starting and running a full stack cell phone to TV system. And this was for to promote citizen journalism. It was called StringWire. You won't find it anywhere, and it's not really archived very well. And I think Twitter bought Periscope, and Facebook started their thing, and so that project got killed. The good news is I ended up then having an opportunity to join my friend Brewster Kahle over at the Internet Archive, and this was now 10 years ago. So and I remember Brewster said, "We got jobs, lots of jobs, Mark. Come on over." And how'd you like joining the Wayback Machine? Great. Yes, excellent. Because I'm an armchair historian, and my wife would say hoarder, I would say collector from way back. So it was a fantastic job, and I've been having fun with it ever since. At the time, there was one engineer and then one other person helping out, and now it's a team of 12 engineers and a whole network of relationships and partnerships and folks that are contributing to the effort. Okay, that's enough about me. A little bit about the Internet Archive. It was started, it's an organization, a 501c3, that was started by this man that we've mentioned, Brewster Kahle, an old friend of Ted's and I and others here. And Bruce, you worked with us for a long time. You probably tell me stories about Brewster back then. But Oh, I just want to say one more thing. Back to the, I first met Brewster when he was still a student at MIT, and I was doing work with an anti-nuclear organization back in Brookline. And so the woman I was working with brought me back to her house to meet her friend, her housemate, who was Brewster. So that was the original connection there. Okay, so fast forward, Brewster started 2 organizations in the same time. Alexa Internet as a for-profit, Internet Archive as a nonprofit. The for-profit he ended up selling to Jeff Bezos, and Amazon bought Alexa Internet. That was a pretty good exit for him. It was a second exit. His first exit was selling Waze to AOL. And so this the second exit to Amazon gave him the financial flexibility and the time really to pursue his real passion, which was building the Library of Alexandria version 2. And that is the Internet Archive. So he shifted all of his efforts over to the nonprofit Internet Archive about 28 years ago. Internet Archive is an organization with a mission of universal access to all knowledge. And that's kind of crazy. Like, it's got lots of superlatives in there, like universal and all and knowledge and everything. And it's kind of interesting because part of our style guide at the Internet Archive is that we don't use superlatives in our writing, like more or most or biggest or best or things like that, except for our mission statement. There, it's a little bit full of superlatives, but it's a bit of our North Star. It's what we work toward. So what does that mean in practice? Well, it means that we basically do a couple of things. Well, actually, even before a couple of things, the couple of things that we measure our success with is bits in and bits out. And at a very simple level, it's that. And I rail against that because I want to get into all the nuances and details and different ways to qualify that. But we start there and then we get down into the details of it. So the two things we do is we take.
Can I take an aside?
Yeah.
So for all of you, what this is going to be is you go to a place called the Internet Archive and you can find any web page and lots
There's a superlative.
I know. You can
Not
find
everyone.
lots of the web all the way back for 28 years. And you can find all the records, many records. You can find many TV shows. You can find, and in fact, the Internet Archive allows people to put all sorts of stuff on it, which is another story. So you can go find a lot of different things and you can see when it was updated. That's part of the interface. And so that, just to give you a kind of give you a little image of what we're talking about.
Yeah. So we do basically 2 different kind of things. One is we take born digital material, like things you can get from the web. We acquire it, we preserve it, we organize it, we make it available. And we do that through this interface called the Wayback Machine, and I'll get into all of that. Second thing that we do is we take analog material like books and journal articles and microfiche and microfilm and long playing records and 78s. We acquire that material, we digitize that material, we preserve it, we organize it, we make it available. So born digital material and then analog material that we digitize. And we tend to do these activities at scale. With numbers like billions, and now in the case of the Wayback Machine, trillions. Our 2 primary units of measurement are shipping containers and elephants. Elephants is one that we're using more and more these days. To give you that idea of like shipping containers, we fill up a shipping container with books every 10 days, and then put it on a boat and send it to the Philippines. I'll get into that in a little bit here. So we operate out of we operate now with people spread all over the world. We've got about 120 staff members. We are part of some other mission-aligned organizations. There's a whole handful of them here in the United States and also in Canada. So if you add up all of the organizations, the mission-aligned organizations, and then organizations that we contract with to provide services to us, the number of people that are actually gainfully employed gets up into the hundreds. In San Francisco, we have a headquarters building, which you might have been in tonight, but we're having an event there. But you're welcome to come by, as I said, any Friday. Also, this coming weekend, we're hosting an event called Funding the Commons. If you just Google Funding the Commons, some of you might be interested in coming to its all-day Saturday and all-day Sunday. Our headquarters building is a former Church of Christian Scientists. Brewster likes to say, as Bruce noted, that we bought the building because it matched our logo. The logo is like the Greek cylinders, Greek pillars, and our building has got 8 beautiful Greek pillars in the front, and was a fully functioning church with an actual real pipe organ and pews and all the rest of that. Yep, that's right. That's why I'm paying homage to your pipe organ sheet-like thing over there on the wall. So we're pretty frugal, so we didn't do a lot of changes in the building, and we kept all the pews in place, and we kept this particular kind of church had a stage, so the stage is there, and it's really worked out well for us. We have a lot of events, about 150 events a year now in the building. And these are not like weddings and things. These are all events related to things like archiving or book talks related to digital culture, or working with organizations like the Electronic Frontier Foundation or the Creative Commons or Wikimedia Foundation. I just hosted a 2-day conference there 3 weekends ago called WikiCredCon, which was the intersection of Wikipedia and credibility. Fact-checking and things like that.
Just another quick aside. Yeah. There's a deep connection between Wikipedia
yeah,
and the Internet Archive. You might want to say.
Yeah, that's one of them. Yeah, I got about 15 bullet points here, so that was going to be what I was going to get to. So the interfaces to our service are, if you come to the service, you probably know, if you have any kind of background in computer human interfaces, you'll see that it's kind of like 1990s kind of Craigslist-ian in certain kind of ways. And but we A, it works for us, and B, we're constantly looking at how to, believe it or not, constantly looking at how to make things better. But having said that, we don't actually have, I think we have one person on staff who has maybe a UX or a UI kind of background formally. So I just mentioned that to open up the floor a little bit. If folks here want to maybe come talk with us about these kind of things, we're definitely open. The material is organized in collections by and large on the non-Wayback Machine side of the house. That is the things like books and journal articles and videos and images and all the rest of that. There's probably hundreds of thousands of collections. We also have full text search using Elasticsearch that lives on top of the metadata for the collections, and in the case of the books, the actual data itself. So full text index on about 8 million books and tens of millions of other text objects. The material can be viewed through players. These are media-specific players. So there's a book reader, for example. There's a video player, and other kind of players. For example, in the case of Flash objects, Flash emulator. So Flash, of course, is one of these medias that kind of went up and was very, very popular for a period of time, and then fell out of favor and eventually got killed, such that a few years ago, it was almost impossible to really enjoy Flash objects with modern browsers. So there's a group of software developers who created an emulation software called Ruffle in JavaScript, and we began using this emulation software and provide an interface between the Flash objects on archive.org, as well as Flash objects archived in the Wayback Machine, the web collection that we have, that can now play back many millions of Flash objects. And though it doesn't fully support ActionScript 3, for example, which means that a lot of the Flash videos we cannot play back at this time. Ruffle gives us the ability to, and other emulation software that we have, to play back software. So productivity software like WordStar, or the older kind of things like that, or gaming software like Pac-Man, or or Oregon Trail, or Tetris, or any one of a number. I think Prince of Persia is a favorite for a lot of folks who come through and do the tours now. So what we do is we actually load up the simulation software in runtime when people want to interact with one of these hundreds of thousands of software titles that are available through the archive. And then through a modern browser, they're able to work with that software as if it was running on a particular kind of machine. A Commodore, Atari, Amiga, Apple IIc, Windows 3.1, Mac OS 6.0, et cetera, et cetera. And you get to select these different types. So this would have different geometries and different bits for the color and all the rest of that. And it looks like you're playing the thing on that kind of computer. So it's really opened up an amazing opportunity for people to go back and experience a lot of this older software in the time and the kind of the manner in which it was first available. Okay, I'll talk a little bit about books now. We, as I said, we digitized we have about 8 million books available through our library. We digitize about 4,600 books a day. That's about 1 million books a year. We acquire these books mostly through a used bookstore called Better World Books. Better World Books is now a nonprofit used bookstore, one of the largest in the world. It's got an inventory of about 30 million books. We bought the company, Better World Books, a few years ago and then donated it. So we turned it into a nonprofit. And so they have a wish list from us of books that we would like to have. And this wish list is compiled through a combination of whether the book has been cited in a Wikipedia article or whether it's been used in a college or university text. So we worked with an organization called Open Syllabus that has mined about 700,000 college and university syllabi to extract out from that material references to books and academic papers. So we get this, any given time, we have this wish list of about 1 million books, and then the books get pulled off the conveyor belts at Better World Books. They get put in boxes, the boxes get put in pallets, the pallets get put in shipping containers, the shipping containers get put on big boats, I guess they're called ships, and they all go to the Philippines where they're digitized. And they're digitized on machines that we designed and built and open sourced the plans for. So if you have a machine shop and want to make these kind of machines, you can make them yourself. And then after the books are digitized, they're put back in boxes, put back on pallets, put back in shipping containers, put back on ships. They're shipped back here to the United States, and then we store them away in physical archives. We own multiple physical archive buildings here in California, a couple on the East Coast, well, I was going to say we were looking for a new building. We just bought a very large building close to the Canadian border on the East Coast, and so I think that will hold us for a little while longer. But a few years ago, we had bought a big building in Pennsylvania, and that now is pretty much full. So this effort of acquiring digital material, analog material, digitizing it, and then packaging it away so that it theoretically could be accessed at some point in the future, although that's not the primary use case. The primary use case of this material now is that it has been digitized and it is available for access and enjoyment through archive.org. Everything I'm talking about tonight can be accessed through archive.org. In the case of the Wayback Machine at web.archive.org. Let's see, we lend these books out in a variety of ways. One, if it's an older book that doesn't have any rights issues associated with it, then you could download a PDF file of the book. You could, through the viewer, it's an image viewer, you could flip through pages and see them. You could actually get text of the book. You could do full text searching across the book, et cetera. If it's a more modern book, then there might be some rights issues associated with it. And depending upon them, then access may be controlled in certain kinds of ways. One of the ways is something, a lending process referred to as controlled digital lending. So it's a lending process employed by some libraries where one, copy, one digital copy of a book that is physically owned by a library is lent one at a time with digital rights management. And so that process has been employed for a long time by us. We were sued over this process by Hachette and three of the other larger book publishers in the world. And after several years of litigation, we lost that case. We did appeal it, and we lost our appeal last year. And then last year we settled, and we chose not to appeal to the Supreme Court, which would have been a final kind of appeal for us. So we settled. We made some concessions. We pulled about 500,000 books from our library, and there's certain other concessions about books that we're not now making available through controlled digital lending. Having said that, vast majority of the books are still available in some fashion, and also many of these books are also available for people who have print disabilities. And so if they register with the appropriate certifying authorities in the United States, they can get access to some of this material. In addition, generally speaking, portions of these books can be made available via links from Wikipedia articles. So there's a program. So I didn't say what I actually do there at the Internet Archive. My title is Director Wayback Machine, so I manage the Wayback Machine, but I manage many other projects there. And one of them is called Turn All References Blue, and that project is where I work with a number of engineers, and we have several goals. One goal is to reduce the number of broken links in Wikipedia articles. So we have software that goes through Wikipedia articles on a continuous basis. There's several hundred million links in Wikipedia articles, and we have identified and then rescued more than 23 million of them that had otherwise returned a 404 page not found. And this isn't a like done and finished kind of thing. We discover and fix about 10,000 a day in and day out. So that just is one measure of the atrophy of the web overall, that this link rot thing is a continuous process of good URLs going bad. And I'll make that practical when I talk a little bit about what we've been doing with the US government websites in recent months. So one is find and fix broken URLs. The second is add links to Wikipedia articles that are references to books or papers, where those links go back to digital versions of those books and papers from our library. So that makes it such that people that are reading a Wikipedia article and they see a reference to a book or a paper are more likely to be able to then click on that link and get to a digital version of that paper or the book, or maybe only a portion of the book, depending upon some of the rights issues associated with the book. More broadly, this project, Turn All References Blue, envisions a Star Trek future of the world in which everything that humanity has ever published that has a reference in it to something else will A, be accessible, and B, that those references will be clickable or gesturable or thinkable or something like that, whatever the UI is, right? That to basically complete the link graph, if you will, of at least those explicit references. Those, I refer to them as latent links. I think arguably the vast majority of the links that exist in the world are latent. They're a promise of a link. For example, damn, I meant to bring a prop tonight. It was going to be a book from 1987, an academic book about how to stop a nuclear war after it starts.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, and 2 nights ago I rewatched that movie, The Sum of All Fears, and in that a nuclear war actually is going on. It's actually happening, and well, I'll spoil the ending, but they don't blow up the entire world. Okay, so but the point is, academics have actually thought about these topics, and I've collected now 2 books that do a pretty good job on this topic, and they're both full of references, full of footnotes to other academic papers and or books in this country and others, But because both of these books were written in the 1980s, you can't click on any of the links because the book's not digital and none of the links exist. So in my more perfect world of the future, two things are true. One, those two books and every single book ever published, like about 120 million books, are digital, and every single, at least explicit reference, if not implicit reference, to some other book, movie, music, experience that has been recorded and digitized and available in some other fashion is accessible. So that's going to happen eventually, but after I'm long gone. In the meantime, Toronto References Blue Project is working to reduce the time period between now and that fanciful superlative time in the future. There, I squeezed in a superlative there. Okay, so I talked about controlled digital lending, and so I was going to shift over to the Wayback Machine now, I think, a little bit. So you've all used the Wayback Machine, right? Yeah, so it's a time machine for the web. We've been basically operating since Brewster Kahle decided to press record on this new media called the web. That even then, I remember when he announced it, and some people said, well, they said this of the web, right? They said, well, I don't know, is this thing going to stick around? Is this just a fad? I mean, I don't know, it's kind of silly or whatever. Like, why would anyone want to record this kind of thing, etc. And, you know, I know this may be self-evident now, but we've got some pretty good recordings of the web from that time. We don't have a lot of good recordings from Gopher or Waze of that time. We don't have a lot of good recordings of a lot of those early online platforms, the EYES system at the New Jersey Institute of Technology, for example, you know, the BIC system, the Genie system, the Prodigy system. That'd be a really hard one to archive and emulate, but I'm sure someone's working on it. And any one of a number of other systems. So Brewster, anyway, said, okay, at least this web thing, we're going to start recording it. And he did, initially on tape drives, I guess, the very beginning part, the first version of it. I'm told, yeah, the Sun.
15 DLT tapes.
15 DLT tapes. 15 DLT tapes.
15.
Got it. Yeah.
Right.
And I think it was a Sun 10 or Sun 20 or something, or maybe. So, but that pretty.
Then big, huge
Beehive. So they pretty quickly they moved over to spinning disk, and we've never looked back. We've been always running on spinning disk and keeping all of the material available. In 1997, we archived the web for a year, and we collected 2.2 terabyte. So 2.2 terabyte in 1997. Today, we add about 80 terabyte a day of web archive. And about another 20 terabyte a day of other kind of stuff, books and papers and videos and all the rest of that kind of stuff. Well, videos that don't come from the web. Because a lot of that 80 terabyte a day actually ends up being a video that we're getting from the web. These days, we add more than 1 billion URLs to the Wayback Machine every day, probably closer to 1.5 billion. We do that by following a number of signals. And over the last 10 years, I put a lot of effort into identifying signals about how we can know about what's happening on the web. Because there is no list. There's no complete inventory or roadmap or anything like that. There are things that kind of try to approximate that. And Alexa Intranet early on, something that Brewster had started, as I noted, was a kind of a step in that direction. So what we do is we partner with entities like Wikimedia Foundation, and so we monitor every edit that's made in every one of 320 Wikipedia language editions. We have a partnership with WordPress, with Automatic, the company behind WordPress, which powers more than 40% of the web by some measures. We have a partnership with Reddit, so we get all of Reddit. We archive other major social media platforms in various degrees of completeness, including much of all of Blue Sky now. Other platforms we mine, including X. We archive every URL referenced in every post, every X post, for example. We worked with a project that grew out of MIT by Ethan Zuckerman called Media Cloud. where Ethan worked to basically catalog news sites around the world. There's another one by a guy named Khalif. It's called GDELT, the Global Database of Environment, Language, and Tone, which also aggregates news sites around the world. I worked with an intern a few years ago, and we created the mother of all news databases, news sources, and we cataloged 170,000 news sources around the world, broken down by country. And then we use that as a source of signal. We have a partnership with Cloudflare. They're a big internet infrastructure provider, yet another source of signal. And so collectively, you put that together, and then you add in about 1,300 partners, organizations that pay money to the Internet Archive for us to provide web archiving services for them. These are museums and governments and libraries. So 1,300 museums, governments, and libraries. And each of them maybe has 10 projects. So now we've got like maybe 13,000 projects. So all told, in any given day, there's maybe 15,000 different individual processes going on, each of which has a story behind it. In many cases, a human being, or maybe an algorithm, or maybe Reddit. So one of those stories is Reddit, for example. And that collectively, it all comes together to, I think, give us an insight into fairly wide distribution of material from around the world that is representatively available from the public web. Keyword, public web. So what we're not doing is we're not getting things that are behind paywalls or authentication walls or anything like that. And we're not getting material that's being blocked to us by countries like Russia, for example, which is doing a lot of blocking these days. Or, unfortunately, websites that are using Cloudflare, where they've got certain switches turned on in their Cloudflare configuration, which says don't allow web crawlers to access our site. Now, this used to be something that people did, I guess, in the early days with the advent of the robots.txt file, to arguably not have their site be overrun and overloaded by systems that could cause their small computers to be shut down. It's a reasonable kind of an argument. But with the advent of Google and Bing and Yandex and all the rest of that, I think by and large people understood there was a symbiotic relationship between web publishing and these crawling systems that will provide search interfaces to help people discover the websites and bring traffic to them, etc. So for a long time, much of the web was pretty available. And there's a blog post out that I wrote a few years ago where I said that we were choosing to disregard robots.txt for .gov, .mil, and I think I said .edu or .org websites. I forgot exactly what I wrote, but and we didn't say more than that, and I won't say more than that now, except to say that we work really hard to archive as much of the public web as we can. But in the last two specifically years, since October 2022, things have been really changing a lot. The nature of how people access the web. Can anyone think of what the thing is that changed?
AI.
Yeah. And OpenAI specifically, it's right down the street here. And so what we've seen over the last couple of years is a fairly dramatic increase in the shields up actions of websites throughout the entire world, using platforms like Cloudflare, and now a plethora of Cloudflare-like organizations that provide services to web organizations, etc., that are making it harder for what I might argue. I was going to say legitimate. I was going to be, but I'll just say different. A different kind of application. There is, so there's a place for AI companies to do crawling, scraping, etc. There's a place for search engines, and there's a place for archives to do this, maybe different use cases. But in any case, by and large, these efforts are kind of being put together in kind of one big bucket. And so the impact of that right now is just making it harder for us to archive more of the public web because of this. At the same time, we've seen, because of economic reasons and also because of the rise of the AIs, a lot of folks going behind paywalls. The most of the news organizations in the United States right now, let me rephrase that, legitimate news organizations are behind a paywall. So you might say, well, what does he mean legitimate? Are you talking about something on the political spectrum? Not really. I'm actually I'm making a more careful distinction here, where the majority of sites that look like local news organizations in the United States right now are not real news sites. They're what's referred to as by Columbia Journalism Review as pink slime sites. They are masquerading as if they're a local news organization. This Sacramento Bee or something like that. Maybe there is a Sacramento Bee. I'm not really sure. But the Reading Bee, there probably isn't that, but there probably is a Reading Bee, and it might look like the Sacramento Bee, but it's really put up by some hedge fund or some dark money organization that's trying to promote one particular political candidate or a particular political perspective, or it may even be a foreign operative that's trying to influence thinking here in the United States. So anyway, there's a pretty good study about this. NewsGuard has put out data about this and others, and I could, if anyone wants to dig into this further, I'm happy to go further on it. Okay, so another way that people can save material, or that material can be saved in the Wayback Machine, is through an interface called Save Page Now. Save Page Now is open to anyone for free at any time. Thousands of people use it every single day. Millions and millions of URLs are archived via Save Page Now, and it's got 5 primary interfaces. One is just go to web.archive.org, the Wayback Machine, and on the right it says Save Page Now. You put in a URL, get a return key, you're done. If you're logged into the Internet Archive and you do the same thing, you get a lot more features. So we don't charge you any money, but if you create an ID and a password and you use our Save Page Now service, you get a lot more features. For example, you can say, don't just archive this URL, archive every URL on whatever web page is associated with this URL. Those are referred to as outlinks. So you may put in a news article that's got 10 links in it to other news articles, and then therefore all of those 11 web pages will be archived. Now, of course, you all know that web pages are made up of individual page elements. So when you archive one web page and every URL on that web page and those web pages, and let's say that first page is one CNN.com page. Okay. Anyone want to guess how many individual URLs actually get submitted to be archived?
Oh my God.
Yes. How many? About 32,000. Yeah, on that one. And I have a demo particular page that I can show you that. So the numbers get to be pretty quick, pretty big, pretty quickly. So one interface is the Wayback Machine. Another interface is email. You can send email to spn@archive.org with a URL in it, and we will archive that. Another one is browser extensions. So there's a Wayback Machine browser extension available for all the standard browsers. It's like a Swiss Army knife for a whole bunch of stuff, not just web archiving, but a lot of other interesting contextual insights into the web. And I'm going to talk about context in a second. Fourth interface is an iOS and an Android app. Pretty long in the tooth, so that's an area of opportunity if anyone wants to help us with our Android and iOS apps. And then finally, APIs. Actually, there's 6 interfaces. I forgot one. And so the APIs have been used by third-party developers to create interfaces between, say, the German press agency has got this whole news investigation desk, and they've integrated their system into the Wayback Machine. And then the 6th interface is a Google Sheet. So you could submit tens of thousands of URLs into column A of a Google Sheet, and there's press one button, and they'll all be submitted to the Wayback Machine to be archived. Carrie said, she introduced herself and said, "Hey, I did this this thing. I wrote the code for the radio tree graph interface, and we had corresponded back then. And I had seen this thing, a radio tree graph, in a book about data visualization, and I thought, oh, that's a pretty graph. I really want to use that somehow. I wasn't quite sure how I was going to use it in the Wayback Machine, but it was just really pretty, and I like colors. So, and then I thought, oh, it's like tree. It's like a tree structure. Like websites are like tree structures. So I asked one of my engineers, hey, do you think you can take this, this chocolate and put it together with peanut butter and make this thing that represents websites in a radial tree graph that could also be interactive, that could also change based upon the year of the archives of that particular website? And it works. It works really well. So that was kind of cool. Although one night my wife said to me, wait, you can't archive like these 20 URLs right now? I got to enter them in one at a time into the Wayback Machine? Are you, what? You say you run this thing? So anyway, that was the mother invention of the Google Sheets. And I think it was probably her idea to say, why don't you just do it via Google Sheet? And then we got that thing going. So I say that to say that we're really open for ideas. And if you use our services and think of something that you think we could be doing differently, better, you don't have to know how to do it even. If you know how to do it, that's great too. But please do feel free to share that information with me tonight or anytime into the future. Okay, here's another one for you, context. So you asked earlier about if you had $10 million, how you could get rid of tyranny.
Yeah.
I actually thought you were going on to something about like disinformation or something like that. So, with the Wayback Machine, we play back archives of things we saw were available from the public web at a particular point in time. So there's context there. The context is the time. Right, and there's other context too, like the browser software that we were using when we made the archive. But other context about that page that might be useful might be things like what language, what human language is that page in, right? What geography? Where was the web server physically? The geography of that web server. What can we know about the organization that owned the web server? Or let's say it was a news article. Was the news article, did anyone else write about that news article? Is there contextual information about the news article? Oh, did another news organization maybe write a fact check about that news article? Was it an academic paper that got retracted? That'd be nice to know. If I'm on the web and I see an academic paper, to have some sort of indication that that paper was retracted by the journal. Or maybe it was an article that was published by a news organization and they retracted that news article. Maybe it violated their policies in some fashion. They found out that it was, there was some problems with the integrity of the news article. So these are all contextual information that might make the experiencing the web a little more, be more helpful in some fashion. So since we have this web archive and we can go back in time and people are able to view a web page through our interface, we have an opportunity to present interventions of context. So right now the interventions of context take two forms, but I'm throwing this out there as an idea that I'm looking for help further developing this idea of the intervention of context. So there's a couple of lines of inquiry. One is, what could this context be? So to date, we've aggregated about 250,000 fact checks from several dozen fact-checking organizations around the world: Washington Post Fact Check, PolitiFact, FactCheck.org, etc. We've aggregated retractions from Retraction Watch, and we're aggregating community notes from X. So every community note on X is now in this database. Mark Zuckerberg recently basically killed fact-checking, or the relationship between Meta and fact-checking around the world, and he's going to replace that with some form of community notes. So we look forward to importing all of the community notes that are made available on Meta when they're made available there. And today, the interface is two types. Type one is if you are playing back a URL on the Wayback Machine and there is context available, you'll see a yellow banner at the top. And the yellow banner will say something like, this paper was retracted. Read more here. Click. And you click through to why the paper had been retracted. Or this article was pulled by the publication for editorial reasons. Click more about it here, etc. And the second is if you're using a Wayback Machine browser extension, so you don't have to go to the Wayback Machine. You're just running this extension, and you go to a URL that we have context about. A little yellow dot will pop up over the icon of the browser extension. So that's it. I'm looking for help in two ways. What more things might we add to this web experience that could be contextually useful information? And secondly, what additional ways might we increase the probability that people experiencing material on the web could know about that context that's available? What additional interventions? And the obvious ones are, gosh, wouldn't it be nice if you had native integration with web browsers, for example, or platforms? And we are working on that. We do have one native integration with a browser right now. It's with Brave. So Brave will, by default, intercept. What it will do is if you're using the Brave browser, by default, if you go to a web page that returns a 404 or 15 other error conditions, then a UI will come up and say, would you like to see if there's an archive of this available from the Wayback Machine? And if you click yes, then we'll try to present that to you.
So Mark, this is fabulous. Thank you very much. But you're saying you're done? No. You got more stuff?
Gosh, no, I was just doing a time check.
Oh, okay.
So wait, you tell me.
No. I thought, okay.
Say.
Please go on. I was going to start asking questions.
Oh yeah, I tell you what. Here's what I'm going to do. Let me just
go for it.
Let me take 10 seconds and take a quick look here of some things. I think what I want to. Yeah, that was the next thing on the list.
Okay. All right. So we have another 10, 15 minutes?
Yeah, thereabouts. Okay. Maybe. Yeah. Okay. So I'll say yeah. So governments, tapestries, how we pay for things. So I'll get that one out of the way. Our budget last year was $28 million. Money comes from three primary buckets. The first is more than 150,000 people who give us money either monthly or once a year. The second is a much smaller number of high wealth individuals and foundations. And then the third is those 1,300 colleges, universities, museums, libraries, government, et cetera, that I mentioned that use our Archive It subscription service, and we charge them money for. So let's see, governments. Okay, so a special case of some of the web archiving that we do is focusing on certain things. I mentioned news already, for example, is an area that we focus on. It's hard for me when I start talking about this because I say, well, but then we also focus on this. And oh, by the way, we focus on a lot of things. But government is definitely one of those areas. And so in 2004, we started ourselves, and then we teamed up with a bunch of other people in 2008 to do deep dives on the U.S. government web presence before and after each presidential elections. Historically, we've done this in collaboration with the Library of Congress, the National Archives and Records Administration, and the U.S. Government Publishing Office. And now we are doing it with Harvard Library Innovation Lab, the Common Crawl Foundation, the University of North Texas, the Environmental Data and Governments Initiative, and Stanford Libraries. And I might have missed one, but that's basically the gist of it. And what we do is we work for months trying to compile as comprehensive, as complete an index as possible of every website associated with the U.S. government, and URLs within those sites that we think might be high value. We do that through a combination of aggregating lists that are maintained by various government agencies. You would think there'd be like there is not one complete list. I have this list that I do myself where I get notifications once a day of all of the hosts and domains that are registered in .gov and .mil and related top-level domains. And there's a whole bunch registered every single day. So just keeping track of that is a bit of a task. But we also open this up to the general public. It's a call for nominations that has historically been promoted by the Library of Congress, the National Archives, and a website called eotarchive.org. So this time around, starting last year, mid last year, we did the same thing. We put the call out. We collected tens of thousands of URLs. We collected lists of tens of thousands of websites. And before the elections, we started archiving that material. And so we did one pretty good archive before the election. After the election, we did another pretty good archive. That one got a little interrupted this year because you might have read that we had a bit of a cyber attack in October. I might say a few words about that in a bit, maybe later. And then we started up a third version of this effort after the inauguration. So to date, we have archived this particular 2024-2025 edition of the end of term archive. We've archived about 700 terabyte of material, including about 1.2 million videos from YouTube and material from various social media platforms, as well as what you would think would be the .gov, .mil sites, etc. There are a number of government websites that are .org. There are some that are .edu. There are even some that are .com, believe it or not. So we cast our net pretty wide and we go pretty deep, and we work really hard to get as much of this material as is reasonably possible. This time around, right after, within a few hours of the inauguration, we began getting signals that a lot of government web material was changing, more so than had ever happened in the past. I mean, there was a lot of changes that happened the last time Trump was in power, and that's fairly well documented. There was this organization that I referenced earlier, BayCHI, Environmental and Data Governance Initiative, did a couple of pretty good meaty reports about this, especially looking at the changes and deletions in material related to climate change. But this time around, it was much more pervasive, and to date, we have, as of a few hours ago, we've recorded about 1,300 hosts that have been taken offline, and about 130,000 URLs that are no longer on the public government web that were in the public government web before the inauguration. We don't know how many pages were changed, material was changed in them. That's a much harder nut to crack, and but we're working on identifying changes. We kind of, necessity being the mother of invention, we've stepped up the development of a tool that I call Versions, which is kind of a sister to a tool we've had for a number of years called Changes, where you can look at a comparison of one URL at two different points in time, and with blue and yellow, because I'm colorblind, you can see the changes in those two different archives of that one URL. And in the version system, what we're doing is we're working to be able to monitor tens of thousands initially, but hopefully millions of web pages every interval, e.g. 24 hours, and identify changes of various degrees, and then being able to report that out in a kind of useful fashion. So in the last, 6 some weeks, we've tracked about 250 news stories that have been written about the end of term archive or referenced it in some fashion. I think one of the best ones came out today in the Washington Post. It's an opinion piece in the Washington Post that's 13 web pages long, full of charts and graphs and screenshots and all the rest of that about how the Trump administration is attempting to hide history and change the nature of our sense of reality. I'm paraphrasing here. You can look at Washington Post from today, the 11th. New York Times did another one. New York Times did a really good one 3 weeks ago. The BBC, Bulletin of Atomic Scientist, NPR's got one coming out. The Verge, that I mentioned, the Guardian. Anyway, there's pretty much every major news organization has done one story or another about this. We're currently now working closely with CNN and the New York Times on follow-on stories. So the idea here is that we acted not just as a library, archiving this material and making it available, but also kind of going, up the stack, the functionality stack a little bit to try to help make it this material more accessible and useful to people that want to use our library to try to make sense of what has been going on in our country over this last little bit. And then I also just want to introduce, there's a guy that some of you might have heard of named Bob Stein. That name mean anything to anyone here? So Bob was the founder of a company called Voyager and the Criterion. He did the very first interactive CDs, laser discs with the Apple Multimedia Group way back in the day, just a whole big collection of material. Anyways, guy's a real pioneer in the space of bringing books alive and new ways to interact with information. So we teamed up with Bob 3 years ago to try to effectively rebuild HyperCard for the web. And we've done it. And it's called Tapestries. And we haven't really told anyone about it yet. But I'm telling you now tonight, and I'd be happy to follow up with you, and I'll give you all early access to this environment. It's not a big secret. I mean, we've been, but I will give you access to it, and I love your feedback on it. Please, in a nutshell, it's basically an infinite canvas where you can just drag and drop different kind of media types, images, and movies or text, and it's tightly coupled in with the Internet Archive, and you can draw relationships between these objects. And effectively, it's a storytelling platform, a multimedia storytelling platform. We've got several dozen of these stories that we've built with it so far. So I could ramble on a little while longer.
Just want to ask a question about that for a moment. I would assume that the old HyperCard programs don't work on it.
Wow. Not yet.
Okay.
Great idea.
All right.
Right now, today, we can import and export files like projects that one has done as zip files. But that's a really great. I will tell you this: we do have a HyperCard emulator on archive.org.
Okay.
That's done through Ruffle, I think, or I'm not really sure. But regardless, so you can play HyperCard things, but importing native HyperCard into Tapestries, I think I'll talk to Bob about that.
Yeah, well, I know some very big programs in HyperCard that were really
That's
special.
a wonderful idea. Thank you. This just made my night.
Oh.
I have no idea. Was it
Bill Atkins?
what?
Maybe?
No. What?
Maybe Bill Atkins or
I was thinking
Hertzfeld?
Larry Tesler?
No.
Raskin or Heist,
Maybe
Jeff or there's a guy that starts with an H.
Hertzfeld.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that those three. Perhaps.
Or we could just thank Ted Nelson and get it over with, right?
Yes.
Or we could say Vannevar Bush.
We could indeed. Or yeah.
Okay.
Ted will be out here in April, by the way. If anyone wants to meet Ted Nelson, he will be hanging at the archive much of April. So come to a Friday lunch, and he'll probably be there. Yeah.
I have a question that asks a lot. As a child, and a library going child, I was tormented by the idea of where are we going to keep all the books? Because people are going to keep writing books for the rest of my lifetime and beyond. So where are all these books? Aren't you going to run out of space eventually?
Probably not.
No.
We'll just buy more buildings. But
I
honestly, they're not that big. I mean,
There's a few million, right?
We've done only 8. What?
There's a few million.
There's been no. We think there's been 120 million books published so far. We've digitized about 8, so we're just getting started.
By the way, it was
Google,
Bill Atkins. My first guess was right. It was Bill Atkins that wrote HyperCard. My first guess was right.
You're right. So we think. I mean, Google has maybe digitized 40 million.
Well, I'm not talking about the digitized. I'm talking about the physical books.
Yeah, I know.
They have them. They have to have them.
No. I mean, there's problems that we love to have, that we would love to have. I would love to have that problem.
Just want to make sure you had some more things you wanted to say.
There are, but honestly, I think it'd be more useful to open it up a little bit.
Okay, just give us a feeling for what they are, just because all these topics are so exciting. You could just give a feeling for what the ones that we're missing are.
Well, I was going to talk a little bit about the cyber attack. I don't know. That was hard. So in October, we got hit with 3 different kinds of attack vectors. There was some denial of service attacks. There was an infiltration and a defacement of archive.org. and then there was an infiltration of an external third-party service that we were using. To the best of our knowledge, these three different kind of attacks were independent of each other. I don't know, bad timing. It was before the election. We weren't ransomwared, and to the best of our knowledge, well, let me rephrase that. We have no evidence that there was anything maliciously done or material changed in any way. Having said that, we acted very prudently. Some may say overreacted. We basically just hit the circuit breakers, metaphorically, in some cases maybe physically, and just brought down, thousands of devices effectively, and kept them down for some number of days. We brought the Wayback Machine up in, I think, 5 days. Archive.org took a while longer because we were being very careful. We wanted to have a higher degree. See, I didn't use a superlative. It was like a higher degree of confidence in the integrity of our services, and layering in additional security, which frankly we had deprioritized over the years. I went back to bits in, bits out, and that's kind of like Brewster's mantra. Brewster's mantra has been that, and so we've definitely over-indexed on just trying to archive as much material as we can and make it available. And so other things like making better interfaces and tools and services on top of that, interfaces, et cetera, or maybe cybersecurity were areas where we maybe not put as much effort. And I'll just say we're putting more effort into that domain space now. And yeah, let's just talk about other things. What's on your mind?
So I'm going to ask a question or two, and there's many other questions people will have. You had the term useful.
Yeah.
Oops. Let somebody else.
Bruce.
Are you logging or tracking? To what extent are you open to OpenAI?
Oh yeah, I did have a whole section on AI.
Backdoor for OpenAI or other AI critters.
I don't know about inside or backdoors, but so let me.
I mean, is there AI inside the IA?
So every year, the Internet Archive has an event in October, which is referred to as Octobervent. And this year it'll be, I think, October 22nd. So you're all invited to come to our church that night. The night before, we'll have an event at one of our physical archives in Richmond, so over in the East Bay. And that's the one night a year that we open up our physical archives, and you can come in and you can knock on our shipping containers and you can see if we're going to have enough space. It's kind of like a Raiders of the Lost Ark experience going there. So that'll be the first night, and then the 22nd will be the second night, where we'll talk about what we've been doing. This year, the theme is bringing our collections alive. We'll be working on data visualization. In fact, not thinking about you all tonight, but yesterday, I put an X post out and I said something to the effect of, I think I'll read it here, because it was, when you make an X post, you often will kind of count the characters and try to. So skilled in data analysis and visualization, interested in helping bring the collections of the Internet Archive and the Wayback Machine alive, uppercase alive, capital, please email info@archive.org with your ideas and put the word giraffe in the subject line so it stands out. So anyway, I sent that out yesterday, and I've gotten a few responses to it so far. So I'm getting to your answer, by the way, Bruce, here. So once again, this year it's going to be bringing the collections live. Last year it was AI at IA, yeah, and so it was artificial intelligence. Actually, that was the year before, wasn't it? Yeah, and
then what's the relationship with DWeb?
Whoa, gosh, you really okay. So I'll do one at a time. So here's what we're doing. We're doing a couple of things. One is we are using a variety of AIs internally to try to make our services more useful. For example, we're analyzing books and automatically building table of contents contents from those books, from images of those books. I use AI and pattern matching for the Toronto References Blue project. Our software developers are using AI in coding, in writing documentation, creating unit tests, etc. We're using it for optical character recognition. We're using it to do metadata collection. When we work on a project like books or journals, we're not just taking a book and making a copy of it and then going, here, that's the title of the book, go get it. No, we're bringing in things like the publisher and the author and related books and metadata and MARC records and other kind of things. And so depending upon the media type that we're working in, we're bringing in metadata from many, many sources. We also archive television news, more than 55 television news channels, 24/7, most of them outside of the US. We've got AI pipelines that are using, in this case, Google's technology. So we're using a number of different technologies. In this particular case, Google's technology did the transcription of the material from, say, Russian audio into Russian text, and then translation from, say, Russian text into English text. And then we're doing groupings to lump together the stories over, say, a 24-hour time period from a given television channel, say, channel 24 in Russia. And then finally, we're doing summarization of those stories, creating new synthetic paragraphs and headlines, providing an interface in English into television news from around the world. And then, so that's some of those are the internal use and applications of AI. Externally, what we're doing is we are in conversation with, I'll just say, a handful, half a dozen of the more well-known AI companies. And there's certain material that's available from the Internet Archive that we consider to be open. And so that material may be being used by these companies in a variety of ways. But we're not doing anything that we.
And percentage of the traffic out?
I don't know. I will say that I had a conversation with someone who knows something at Wikimedia Foundation a couple weeks ago, and they said that most of their traffic outbound is bot traffic of some kind. And I think that's pretty common. So there's a lot of bot traffic. To be able to make a distinction between what the motivation is behind that bot, I don't know how to do that.
But you can usually kill the bots.
It's not that easy. But regardless, I mean, I'm sure if we wanted to figure that out, we would, but it's not been a priority for us. So certain open material is open, and maybe some other material that might be usefully open but is not yet digitized or acquired a part of our library. Maybe we're working to make some of that more accessible. So let me give you three specific examples. One would be FBIS, Foreign Broadcast Information Service. This was basically a news aggregation service run by our government for many decades, and it aggregated news from all over the world. It was an unclassified division of the CIA, and we've digitized much of that material. Other examples might be, the material that I said that we've been archiving as part of the US government efforts. By the way, that's part of a project, a larger umbrella project at the Internet Archive called Democracy's Library, where we're generally speaking working to acquire and digitize where necessary, preserve, organize, and make material available from democracies around the world with a focus on the United States and Canada.
So I'm going to bring up the last question.
Yes.
And that is from Erwin. And he says, to what extent has awareness of the archive penetrated society? And I just wanted to add that when you said useful, right?
Yeah.
I find the richness of this laundry list you gave us. You probably named 1,000 places. And
or 100, yeah.
Incredible archive. And the question is, what do you think? And there's no reason this shouldn't be the most visited, most interesting, useful, and authoritative, but also incisive way to look at information. What can we do from here to make that penetrate society? What do you need? What do you care to make it the site that people go to really understand knowledge?
I mean, we care as much as we are driven by our mission to advance the notion of universal access to all knowledge. But as I say that out loud, I recognize that, the mission is to provide the access. So I have to think about that a little bit more and think about the mission isn't to have a half of humanity use our site every day, right? Or, anyone a number of measures of use. And so that is something to think about. The site is used by millions of people a day. We do work to try to understand how people use our site and to help inform how we can make it more useful to folks. So the explicit theme of living an examined archive is something that that I bring up in most of my engineering meetings of things that to help us focus. But when you cast the net as wide as we do, how do you be some things to everybody? We can't be everything to everybody, and if we're maybe one thing to somebody at some point in their life, that may be good enough, right? So I don't know. I mean, right now, the measures of
it's plenty good
general
enough.
Awareness.
There's no question that this is a huge public service.
Yes, we are motivated. Yes, we desire to be of maximum use and benefit. We want to be as useful. The phrase that we use all the time is, how can we be a better library? Being a better library for us is measured as being used by more people, maybe more often. But we're not a typical .com driven by funnel optimization analysis or trying the click to visit ratio or the time on site. Frankly, if I could decrease time on site, that may be a greater measure of success. I'm not really sure. We've been on Jeopardy, so that's one thing. We've been on Jeopardy more than once, I think. There's like 3 or 4 different popular TV shows. I think the remake of Matlock had a reference to us, was a reference on Vice. I'm collecting these movie and popular television references to the Wayback Machine that we've seen recently. And so I don't know. It's a great question, Ted. Yeah, it's one that literally keeps me and the people that I work with up at night. And one that I got to say, I had So people have been, I've been interviewed a lot over the last few weeks about what's been happening with with government web services and this end of term archive. And this is, I think, what we've been hearing from people, what people have been telling us, just regular people, like people everywhere we go, right? The people that in our lives that are either working in education or energy or transportation or healthcare. We've all got stories right now about how some of the changes we've seen in our government over the last few weeks is impacting these different worlds, and in small but very profound ways. As I drove over here, I learned that the U.S. government plans to lay off half of the employees of the Department of Education starting tonight. My wife works in that world. She built and runs the world's largest library of free and open educational materials, OER Commons. And one of the very first casualties of this administration was open educational resources. So we're talking things like lesson plans, right? That were developed with US tax dollars as part of a program from USAID that were servicing students in Africa, just went offline. The website itself was maintained by USAID, I guess, and it was just turned off. Now, in this particular case, I'm pretty sure that we, at least, and I don't, by the way, I've been talking a lot about the Internet Archive tonight and the Wayback Machine. there are many other web archiving ventures around the world. So I could talk about some of them, but but let's say there weren't. And okay, in this particular case, that particular resource was archived in the Wayback Machine to the best of my knowledge, but I don't know what it is we're not archiving. But I do know that you can't go back. It's not a real time machine. Maybe next time. And so, if you see something, save something, use our Save Page Now service. Use our service. If you can think about ways that we can make it better, more useful, please let us know.
So we have 5 or 6 other questions.
Okay, I can
And
go
just
faster.
The follow up, just maybe short because we're going to get
do
late.
that.
One of the things that I guess my little follow up is sometimes I've thought that the way to work with you guys about making some amazing, viral and exciting interfaces to have a sister company. That would focus on that because you guys have so much to do with what you described tonight. Yeah. But anyway, so there, let's see. So there's somebody that asked about the Xanadu project being
Seriously?
utilized in some fashion by the Internet Archive.
Hey, sorry, I interrupted your question. What about the Xanadu project?
The Xanadu project, is it or will it be utilized in some fashion by the Internet Archive?
So there's a bunch of projects that I did over the years that I didn't reference. I actually, at one point in the 1990s, when Ted was at Interval, or was Ted? No, at Autodesk. Sorry, he was at Autodesk, and I was the host for the Xanadu project at that time.
So sorry, I have to go.
Take care. Thank you. Very nice meeting you.
I'm going to contact you. I want to find out how I can get on the email list. I'm saying it so I actually get notified about it then.
Top right-hand side of archive.org. Sign up. Oh, Christ. I've heard that before. You're absolutely right. We suck. I will work to make it better. Seriously. I really mean that. Thank you for letting me know that.
So we got this.
I got to go home and work on that. Thank you.
We got this fascinating question about, what does Xanadu relative to Internet Archive?
I mean, that's
it's links. It's I don't know. But,
Perhaps you should state what Xanadu is.
Well, Xanadu is Ted
That's a big
Nelson's
thing.
life project to create the perfect, beautiful Crystal Palace ecosystem of information.
With a built-in business model, and that is what you aren't probably going to do.
I mean, there's lots of built-in business models. Brave's got a built-in business model of micropayments. And is it working? I don't know. I mean, I'd argue that there are many.
I know,
Sure.
but Xanadu,
Anyway.
that was explicit part of it.
Yeah, I know. I'm aware. We're not currently involved in a project to resurrect or bring, presence to Xanadu, but never say never.
That's wonderful.
No, seriously.
Yeah,
I emailed Ted this morning, and he's, as I said, he's coming out here in a few weeks. So, if any of you know Ted, then you know that Ted will definitely want to have that conversation,
And he'll hold court.
and I'll spend some time with him on it. Seriously, I hope so.
Okay, so is there a way to compensate authors for their books or provide attribution to their works are used in AI training, that are used in AI training? This is a typical question that people get to. So
Sure,
sorry about
and people should talk to AI companies about that. That wasn't a question for me, was it? I mean,
no,
there are lots of ways, but on the other hand, you play the devil's advocate for a second. Libraries have served a useful role in societies throughout history, and libraries,
free libraries.
Libraries, yeah, public libraries, have served.
But there used to be non-free libraries.
Sure, they used to. Yeah, no, there still are private libraries, and arguably you don't get access to the Harvard Library unless you pay the tuition. So, in some cases, so in any case. So there's always been generally speaking, there has been, I use this relative, often there has been the availability of non-paid access to books that human beings have been able to read and benefit from. And that has contributed to the success, has contributed to the development and growth of civilization. Andrew Carnegie, most well known probably for his gifts, of libraries across America and indeed throughout the world, I'm told was inspired to make that gift because of his memory of having benefited from a public library in his home country in Ireland, I think it was. Scotland? Scotland, thank you. Yeah, yeah. What?
We're from the same part of Scotland.
Excellent. You can tell me the real backstory, but that when, and he remembered that in his youth he had benefited, and he attributed the readings that he had done from these libraries in his success, that he had given credit to that. So what goes around comes around. I personally think of AI as just an extension of my own brain, and maybe in a more collective fashion. And I'll also suggest that right now, a lot of things have come together for civilization in some not so great ways, right? I mean, we've got the threats of nuclear war, of pandemic, of climate change, and disinformation kind of helping to feed and fuel all of those kinds of dilemmas. And frankly, I think that we need all the help we can get. So my focus right now as a librarian is to helping I'm going to use one of those scary words, equity and access and diversity, and to increase the opportunities for humans throughout the world to be able to access the best resources that human beings so far have been able to pull together.
Great. There's one question from Joy Mountford
Of who?
Asking, what do you do to search for images on the Internet Archive? And is there a plan to deepen that?
We've experimented with some image search. We've actually got an experimental image search system for the Wayback Machine. And it's an AI-based one. I don't think I have it publicly accessible right now. It's not something that I've prioritized per se. It works pretty well. So yeah, A, it's technically possible. B, we've done experiments in it. C, it's something that we'll probably do more of at some point to become a higher priority. But the other thing I want to say is when you talk about image search, like any object, whether it be a book, a lot of words, or an image, a lot of light, is often there's metadata that's associated with those objects, either by the uploader or the creator or something of the work that can help facilitate the discovery of that work.
So a question that isn't a question is somebody tried to make us aware of delta.surf, a browser.
Oh yeah, surf. That's really cool. I'm paying attention to that.
Kevin
It's
Boyd.
like I would definitely recommend exploring that. It's surf. It's called
Surf.
SURF. Yeah.
And then people.
Thank you for that. And follow up with me if you're a surf power user. mark@archive.org. I want to hear from you.
There you go. Another thing that people wanted to know is where this 1 p.m. meeting happens, and it's at 300 Funston. Isn't that right?
300 Funston in San Francisco, which is very close to Geary and Park Presidio.
Yeah.
It's one block off of Geary and Park Presidio. It's a
Very noticeable
Funston
building.
and Clement.
Big columns.
It's hard to miss. It's like this big white building with 8 Greek pillars in the front.
So we have a problem, which is only one person in this room besides me has asked a question. I want to make sure that we get some time with people before we all get prepared.
I wondered what kind of UXR have you done? I think when I use the Internet Archive, I've been using the web for a while, and I understand the interface, but I wonder about the maybe newer users to the internet or people who are not as technically savvy.
You use an acronym there. What kind
UXR, UX research, like
UXR.
Yeah.
Sorry, yeah. My hearing is. My wife tells me that I really need to get the hearing aids thing, but I'm resisting. Yeah. Well, clearly not enough. I would say, right? Yeah, by the expression on your face, maybe, and in your question. No, look, we can always do more, better. We've done. I mean, I could list the things. We've done focus groups. We've done surveys. We've consulted with organizations like IDEO, and I could, name some others if I can remember them. I've had any one of a number of shops come in and present to us. We have at times hired people really with that, UX and UI, et cetera, in their job titles and in their experience and arguably in their portfolios. So I, maybe we could say optimistically that our best days are ahead of us in that regard. We know we have some work to do, and we're definitely putting more effort into prioritizing those. The Tapestries project is maybe a kind of expression of that as a thing off the side here. I'll just also say, I can say this publicly. I've been hanging out with a guy named Kai Kraus for a while. And does anyone know this name, Kai Kraus? Kai created something called Kai's Power Tools back in the day. And he kind of ushered in fractal computing for the masses. He created a whole series of software packages for data visualization. And then he disappeared from the world almost 20 years ago. And he's been holed up in Germany with dozens of engineers working for many years on a project to kind of like reinvent interfaces for information. And I've twice now gone and visited with him in Germany to kind of get updates of where he's at. And both times, most recently last year, it completely blew me away. And hopefully in the coming months, and I hope this doesn't turn into a Xanadu. Let me say, his investors hope too that this doesn't turn into a Xanadu project. But so there are some things on the horizon. I'll also note that we have APIs for much of our material, and we encourage other people to develop systems through our APIs. Can anyone think of the number one passionate community of patrons? We call them patrons, not users, because we're a library, that we have here, especially in the San Francisco Bay Area. They're very interested in
Deadheads.
The Deadheads, exactly. So the Grateful Dead community, bingo. And yeah, he's still kicking. Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, but there are any one of a number of clients packages out there, iOS, Android, etc., that are optimized for playing back Grateful Dead music, including Alex McGlivery, the former deputy CTO of the United States of America. He created one that apparently will filter out the space and drums, because I guess Mick somebody or whatever, the drummer dude, like would sometimes go off on like 30-minute tangents, like I do sometimes, but him with the drums, you can cut them. Anyway, the point is, we're open. We have work to do. Thank you for that question.
Just a quick follow-up.
Yeah.
Are there any learnings from trying to make this kind of complicated technology accessible to people, maybe even on mobile or some other languages or anything like that?
I don't understand the question. Sorry.
Internet Archive is kind of
English oriented?
oh no, it's a complicated website to get your head around unless
Yeah.
you're a technical person. And I wonder, again, any learnings from trying to make it more accessible that maybe wouldn't be obvious to some of us?
Yeah. I mean, I could try to analyze why we haven't been more successful, right? And so, are the more successful in innovating and bringing to market more useful functionality in UI? That's how I interpret the question. Well, it's some of it. It's some of it, but you're right. But to say part of it is organizational. Maybe we haven't, as an organization, prioritized it. Maybe some of it is just, talent. Sometimes things work well and sometimes other. But finding a good product market fit is sometimes can be elusive, especially maybe I think when you've got a product. Right. And so, we didn't set out to create a product market fit or to garner a large following in a market. We set out to serve a mission of universal access to all knowledge, to create opportunities for people curious enough to learn and explore, to be able to fulfill their desires. So I'll just say, as a practical matter, much of our work is open. We have libraries of videos, of talks that members of our team have given or on various topic matters over the last many years, and maybe even some of our focus groups and things like that. I could turn you on to.
Not a question, a statement that I think you've done a much better job than I ever could have done. But in the early aughts, I would have answered the question. We are an archive. And we preserve and provide some access. A library is to worry about circulation and contact, and
But that's true, Bruce. But we very much position ourselves as a library these days.
Yeah, oh, yes.
It's evolved over time. Maybe.
No, but archive is the principal mission, and is
Certainly in our name.
the initial.
Yeah,
Uh,
you're right.
And in this what do you call it, knowledge industry, there's a repository, archive, a repository and time capsule. I mean, in some sense, it's the time capsule role that is first before you can build the frou-frou interfaces.
Excellent. Yeah. Thank you. Bruce.
Here's to making it better access. Here's to getting more people to enjoy and appreciate it. Here's to you continuing to expand its breadth and reach. And we are so appreciative of you working so hard to get the government backed up. It's great.
Somebody's got to do it.
Somebody's
Big
got to
job.
do it. And you know what's what I can tell just listening to you, it's unbelievable that you had the time and energy to come here, because you have 1,000 things that you're working on simultaneously, and they are working and people are using them. So thank you very much for this great talk.
Thank you, Ted. Thank you, everybody.
Once again, can you mention your contact information?
Absolutely. So my name is Mark Graham, and people can reach me via mark@archive.org. For general inquiries, one can also send emails to info@archive.org. I'm also available via all the primary social media platforms. And my DMs are generally open.